I'd like to thank Yakarin on the Discord for the idea for this video here. Also, this video is a little slapdash put together, mostly because I'm getting, like, blizzard warnings, stuff like that. So I did this one and I did next week's Monday video in, like, the course of an hour and a half. So you'll have to forgive some of the quality on these 2 weeks. I wanted to get them done just in case, like, my power goes out or something. It's known to happen. So, thanks again, and enjoy. In the northern reaches of Utah, there's a power defined by what you don't see. If you've spent any time in Zion Canyon, you've heard the name whispered by the caravanners there. They call them the 80s. They're the reason the trade routes through the Great Salt Lake are considered a death sentence. They're the boogeymen that keep seasoned guards awake at night. But here's the strange part. Despite being one of the most aggressive and dominant forces in the New West, we never actually see them. Now, there are wreckage of the caravans that have been hit. We see the smoke from towns they've put to the torch. We hear the fear in the voices of survivors like Stella, who flat out tell us that if the 80s wanted her town dead, it wouldn't even be a fight, it'd be a funeral. To understand why they're so feared, you have to look past the surface level of violence. And you have to look at a map, at the actual layout of Salt Lake City and the arteries that feed into it. When you look at the geography around that lake and the pre-war culture of the region, the 80s stop being just another raider tribe. They become something much heavier. And they're the story of what happens when a community spends generations preparing for the end of the world, only to realize that when the sky finally fell, no one was coming to save them. Let's take a look at what we actually know. The 80s aren't just scrounging for scrap like the Jackals or the Vipers. They behave more like a military logistics company that's gone completely feral. They cover a massive territory, thousands of miles of salt flats and desert area, with a small, highly mobile force. They've been at war with the White Legs for years, and it isn't even close at this point. The White Legs are brutal, sure. They've got the rituals, the braided hair, but the 80s, they're a different breed entirely. If Salt Upon Wound survives the events at Zion, the 80s are the ones who eventually hunt his people down and take the lake. And if he dies in Zion, they simply erase the White Legs from history. But where does this kind of discipline come from? There's no known leader, no recorded religion for them, no visible high-tech gear. They're simply a void in lore. Usually when a group is this organized, but stays this quiet, it's because their roots go back to something the wasteland isn't ready to face. And to find that root, we have to look at the area they claim as their home, the area around the Great Salt Lake. Salt Lake City was the heart of the Church of Latter-day Saints before the Great War. Yes, they existed there. Yes, the Mormons existed in Fallout lore as well. We have the 45 auto pistol to thank for that, along with some other weapons from John Moses Browning in the game. We know he existed. Joshua Graham even says as much. Joshua Graham is also a Mormon. Anyway, tangent aside. Mormon culture isn't just about faith. It's about the visceral reality of surviving a disaster. They stockpile, right? I'm talking about massive underground safe houses filled with years of food, medical supplies, seeds, tools, you name it. But those supplies weren't for them. In their belief, those were provisions for the end times. They were meant to help the community and act as charity for whoever was left behind when the world finally broke. Imagine the morning of October 23rd, 2077. You're outside of one of these bunkers. You've helped to stockpile it your whole life. One final act, one good deed for whoever comes after. Because you've been a good person. You won't be here anymore. You'll have been called home. Because after all, you have your faith. And then the sky is open. And instead of being called home, the bombs hit. And the world goes quiet. And no one comes to call you home. The 80s are most likely descendants of some of these pre-war survival communities. They're most likely the descendants of the people who prepared the land for others, but in the end weren't saved by the heavens. When the bombs hit, there was no divine intervention. There was just radiation and famine. Then the neighbors started turning to ghouls, rotting, blistering, things that just wouldn't die. To a community raised on scripture, this wasn't a mutation. This was a sign. They were on the wrong side of the door, and it was closed and locked. For some of the survivors in those Salt Lake bunkers, the interpretation was simple. The end has come, and they were left in hell. The invisible fires of the radiation. I figure this has probably caused a generational breakdown. They spent decades preparing charity for people of the future. A future that they wouldn't be here in. And now they're stuck in those dark bunkers, and that charity turned into resentment. Their mindset shifted. It wasn't, we prepare for others anymore. It became, we take for ourselves. Because after all, if the world is hell, then survival is the only thing we have a right to now. They took their name from the road signs that lived along the highways. Highway 80. Exit 80. A cold, mechanical number. No spirit, no God. Just a line carved in the dirt. And this is why they move the way they do. They move like a supply network, because that's exactly what their ancestors were. They aren't wandering. They're using old world logistics routes to make their acts of raiding easier. They don't just raid, they reclaim. Every caravan they hit, They see it as taking back provisions that they prepared for others so long ago. Things that were promised to them in the hereafter that never came to be. Because after all, they were promised a kingdom. And they were given the salt flats. Every act of cruelty is just a big fuck you to the heaven that ignored them. It also explains why they hate the white legs. While the white legs have rituals and faith, they also destroyed New Canaan. New Canaan was also descended from the same types of people that make up the 80s. Maybe they hate them out of some twisted sense of righteousness for lost brothers and sisters. We may never know. And the 80s are a warning. And they aren't just raiders motivated by greed. They're people who prepared for the end of the world, only to find out that the end was just the beginning of something much worse. And they're what happens when a community of faith outlives its God. And they are the abandoned children of the Great Salt Lake, moving across the desert with the efficiency of a machine and the coldness of a ghost. We've never seen them because they've stopped talking to the world. They stopped negotiating. They're finished with the world of men and the world of spirit. And at this point, they are simply the 80s. And in the silence of the Great Salt Lake, their message is clear. If you're looking for salvation, you're looking in the wrong direction. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'd like to thank Eric Hewitt, Big O, and High Marshal Sigismund for being members. If you want to become a member too, link is down in the description. $2 a month gets you access to members only videos, which I just put up a few days ago. Along with that, probably going to start doing some watch-alongs of like older media and stuff on, I think Patreon allows live streams. It'd be free, mind you. Wouldn't put anything behind a paywall there. But they're a lot more lax with what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, which is really nice. So, might do that like sometime at night. Mind you, night East Coast time. Next week, maybe. If I have time and I'm not tired. Probably watch Storm of the Century, something like that. If you've never seen it, it's a mini-series. If you're too young to understand what a mini-series is, then God help you. Nah, it's pretty much what Netflix was before Netflix was a thing, right? They take great ideas that couldn't really be made into a movie, but would do great as a show, but you couldn't make multiple seasons of. And a network would just produce like a season of the show. 3 or 4 episodes, like an hour and a half each. They're not bad. They're really fun. Bunch of Stephen King's works got adapted this way. This is in fact one of them, if memory serves me right. But since we're supposed to be getting since we have a blizzard watching effect where I live, it just kind of feels right? Anyway, enough boring talk. I'm gonna get out of here, maybe edit some more stuff up, figure that all out. Thanks for watching again. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm head on out.